All right, I guess we will go ahead and get started. It's a couple minutes after 1:15 East Coast time. Thank you everybody for joining us for this session. This is the DoD panel, research panel. The format for this panel is we are going to have one live presentation, and then we have 3 other pre-recorded videos that are out on the web where the pre-recorded videos are posted that you can watch to see those. And after the live video, we will have a Q&A for all 4 presenters on any and all of the programs that they tell us about that you might have questions. So the groups and people you're going to see today, the pre-recording videos, one is from the Air Force Research Lab. You're going to see Asheley Blackford and Dr. Reggie Cooper. They're going to be talking about opportunities with AFRL, specifically their Minority Leaders Research Collaboration Program. You're going to hear from CJ Maciag. He's with the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Research and Engineering. He's going to talk about the activities driving cybersecurity research and education. You're also going to see a video from Dr. Ryan Craven. He is with the Office of Naval Research. And to start us off, we have Dr. Cliff Wang. He's with the Army Research Lab, and he's going to tell us about the opportunities that they have. So Dr. Wang, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. So first of all, thank you for inviting me to this venue, and I hope that we'll have a good communication and sharing of information. And also apologize, I cannot get the video recorded and cleared in a timely fashion, so I have to rely on the slides because slides are quicker to get approved. So I'm going to share a few thoughts and a bunch of information about the office, about AIO funding opportunities, and then the last focus on my own program, which is focused on cybersecurity. And have been with AIO for close to 20 years. I've been managing the cybersecurity information assurance program, and also I'm also managing computing science division. And this year I switched to the role of network science. So that's a little bit introduction about myself. I'm going to the next slides. Oops. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with Army Research Office, and AIO was established in 1951, and one of the 5 major basic research office, including with our counterparts in Navy, Air Force, as well as NSF and the NIH. So the mission of AIO is for us to actually advance the science and technology that will be highly relevant to Army mission. And also we would like to actually, AIO has the mission of connecting the large academic communities with in-house research, Army research laboratories and other CCDC components. And the last mission is to help train and educate future scientists, engineers for the Army, for DoD, and for the whole nation. So that's our mission. Let me move on to the next slides. So I have put the links of our AIO BA here, and this is your opportunity to actually check it out. What is our programs and what is our current interest, and how do you submit proposals, and how do you engage us? So quickly, I'm actually going to discuss a few funding mechanisms that may be of interest to you. So our main program is called a Single Investigator Awards. So this is very similar to NSF SMALL. So it's intended to support one PI, and sometimes we can enlarge it to 2 PIs, but it will be harder to push for a much higher funding level. So that programs actually is where our core portfolio is. And every program managers within AIO has a set of areas defined where our current interests are. So one thing we want to quite often to say, to clarify, people will ask, see, what is your difference between AIO or NSF, the DoD funding agencies versus NSF? NSF actually it promotes science as we do, but they cover a much larger space. For example, computer science or even in the cybersecurity, they cover a lot of spaces. But for Army and probably for our counterparts in Navy and Air Force, we have a mission focus. So we pick the research area which we think strategically will bring cutting edge technologies to warfighters, and we see where the biggest impact will be. So that's a key difference. And if you go to the BAA, you can check out what our program interests are. And the AIO, as I said, is a basic research office. We cover anywhere, from physics, chemistry, life science to engineering and to computer science and cyber. So we cover a wide space of basic science and basic research. Quite often to promote the science, to advance, to actually to stimulate the ideas or to facilitate research sharings, we run workshops and we support symposium and conferences with workshop grants. One thing we quite often use is the seed idea, seed proposal, seed project, which give a researcher a fast pass to get a small amount of money for $60K for 9 months. And that we use that often to stimulate new ideas and to give the community a quick pass to get some small ideas funded. And obviously we support YIPs and that leads to PKs, so on and so forth. So, and PKs, as I mentioned on these slides. And another major component which is supported by OSD is instrumentation program, which we provide PIs with money for supporting labs, equipment. And also there's some other opportunities like high school undergraduate student research apprenticeship programs and HBCU programs. And also along with AFRL and ONR, we run MIRI programs. The MIRI is OSD sponsored, but the service office is responsible for generating topics and running the programs. So that gives you a very quick summary of what the funding mechanism AIO is supporting. I'm going to talk about, oops, slides go too quickly. One thing we are different from an NSF or maybe some other agency is that we run a peer review process, and it's typically a proposer will talk to the program office, like program managers, and get your idea verified with a white paper. And after encouragement, after discussion with the program managers, and you will be invited for a full proposal. So this is a very important process, because this will eliminate many unnecessary waste if the idea does not match our BA, because we have a selected area of interest. After proposal has been received, we'll do a peer review process, like a journal peer review with the experts in the field. In the meantime, we'll also get an endorsement review from DoD or Army labs. And only we get positive reviews from those two sets of reviews, and we can go ahead and fund the proposals. So that's kind of the funding process and review process we go through. Next, zoom into my own program, which is cybersecurity. So the focus of my program is really to establish the scientific foundations of proactive cyber defense, to provide robustness, resiliency of a cyber system that will give mission assurance and to sustain the warfighters under current and future threat conditions. So that's the main focus of the program. Basically, advances science to sustain cyber fights to support warfighters. So if you look at cyber, actually, in my view, it's consists of the system, data, and the human. And we know the field is changing rapidly. From 20 years ago, 30 years ago, until today. Our defense mechanisms are continuously to improve. We have new technologies to defend our system. So was the adversary. So it's a battle between the defenders, cyber defenders, and attackers. So if you look at the past 20 years of my cyber programs and also evolved, I mean, 2005, we initiated research in CSA, which is Cyber Situational Awareness. That was, at that time, that's the most important thing for the cyber defenders because you need to establish situational awareness for yourself as well for understanding the adversaries in the cyberspace. And we move on. I'm talking about the bubbles at the bottom. So we move on to MTD adaptation. And last 5 years, AIO has kicked off cyber deception research. And we initiated the research program with my core single investigator program as well as MURIs, and we run a bunch of workshops and many community efforts. As a matter of fact, we started with Navy, and we actually started a workshop on cyber deception in a major conference last year. This year will be second. Oops. Also, for the past 2 years, adversarial machine learning has been to the forefront because the AI machine learning is going to power the cyber defenders and is going to also empower the cyber attackers. So along that lines, we initiated another new line of research. For the time being, it's called cyber autonomy. The concept is really, given the cyber defense is going to be augmented by AI machine learning, the key research going forward is how can we make sure the AI system is going to be working with human agent effectively, and how the two teams working together. So we have a new team project. It's going to be across US and Australia in this space. And we focus on several key areas, which I'm going to discuss in the next slides. Let's see. So further zooming into what is my program focus. So those are the 4 major areas that if you're interested to engage with us, those are the things of our current interest. So first, as I mentioned, is cyber adaptations and moving target defense. So this is we focus on what's the scientific principles for proactive cyber defense, and in terms of using dynamic techniques like MTD, and also cyber deception and the related metrics. So one thing I always want to clarify with people is, if you think about the technologies, MTD and cyber deception are complementary, and people think, hey, they kind of trying to do the same thing, but there's a key difference I want to mention. So MTD focus on changing our system such that it's becoming difficult or more costly for the cyber adversaries to attack, to poke. So the focus is changing on our side. But on the other side, if you think about cyber deception, obviously we're changing our system with honey of things and other things. But the focus is not on us. The focus of cyber deception is changing your adversaries. Cyber deception is really aimed to changing the decision process and to manipulate their decision outcomes such that their attack capabilities will be mitigated or delayed or distracted. So that's why it's fully complementary from that perspective. MTD focus on changing us, and cyber deception focus on changing the adversary's mindset and decision process. We also interested in leveraging the cross-layer, physical layer properties for better situation awareness and for all kinds of protection mechanism. This is especially true for the Army, where wireless communication for the battlefield is crucial, which includes the soldier radios as well as IOBT and other unmanned systems. So given these systems operate freely with or without human direct supervision, and it is critical we leverage a lot of physical layer securities including wireless communications, to make sure that these devices or systems will be well safeguarded and to perform its mission. Obviously, I mentioned situational awareness. It's continuously to be a very important thing, and it continuously to moving forward. And the fourth area, which I mentioned earlier, is the cyber autonomy, or the key concept is, given that cyberbots working autonomously by themselves, or they can working with humans in a loop as a peer-to-peer relationship, or human could be in a supervisory position, or many other forms. The key message is, given these AI components, given these machine learning enabled bots doing different kinds of things by themselves, or working with human defenders, they could reading logs, they can reading data, they could provide analysis results, and so on and so forth. The key message, or the key research going on, is how do we make sure the relationship between machine and humans are collaborative and productive, instead of contradicting or actually hurting each other. So that's number one. And number two, these agents are going to employ advanced learning capabilities. So as we all understand, the learning capabilities could be severely disrupted by adversarial machine learning or other things. Basically, they are also subject to attacks. So how do we ensure the learning mechanisms are well protected and will do its job? And the last, combined team, the combined system should be able to sustain mission and provide robustness and resilience. I think I used all my time, so I'll stop here, and for the other panel members to kick in. Thank you, and looking forward to engage.
Thank you, Dr. Wang. Now we're going to open up the Q&A session. And everyone, please remember, the Q&A session is for Dr. Wang's presentation, but also the pre-recorded videos from the Air Force Research Lab, the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Research and Engineering, and the Office of Naval Research. So if you watched any of those videos, we have all of those presenters present. So if you have any questions, if you'll just say which group you're asking your question to and ask away.
You know, Jennifer, this is Wayne here. Since the questions aren't coming in real quickly, maybe we could have the other panelists just give a little thumbnail, a little teaser of what's on their videos. And because my guess is these are like my students sometimes. They forgot to do the homework before they came to class.
That is a great idea, and I always did my homework, Wayne, so I don't know what you're talking about on that one.
No, I was not talking about you. Of course I know you did yours.
All right, well, CJ, let's start with you. Give us the 2 to 4 minute elevator pitch.
Okay, and again, my name is CJ Maciag. I'm with the Undersecretary of Defense for Research and Engineering. 30 years as a scientist and technologist in cybersecurity with the Air Force Research Lab prior. And then now I work not at the Pentagon, but that building that's way, way back there. And it has 17 stories. So the elevator speech can be a little bit longer there, but let me just try to summarize in a couple of minutes. So what we do at the USDR&E is we're responsible for the oversight of the overall science and technology portfolio across the department. So while each of the services, they have their own weapon systems and specific capability needs for their forces, when they come together as a joint force, there's additional challenges in terms of scale, situation awareness, and things like that in cybersecurity and cyber operations. So it's our responsibility in our office to interact with all the services and components about their S&T portfolio, take a look at the capability needs that they have, the capabilities that they're working on now and in the future. And then we evaluate that compared to where we think we ought to be in the 5, 10, 20-year timeframes. 20 years in cyber is a long, long way off, right? So to that end, it's important to try our best, like a golf putt, to try to get that putt as close to the, close to the green and close to in the hole as possible. So to that end, we constantly are working on new studies and projections of the key priority science and technology needs and technology areas that the department will need to be able to fulfill its mission, not only within cyber operations, but in what we call the all domain fight. That means cyber right alongside air, right along space, right along surface, undersea, and land. And so we have some unique challenges in doing so. Developing these capability concepts, and then from there deriving the future needs that no one's ever even thought of yet, and then trying to establish a science and technology agenda for that, and working, lockstep with the services is what we do. We have a number of initiatives that take a look at that. One of the initiatives that you'll hear about in the video is responding to Congress this year in what they call Section 257, which is the development of a 25-year science and technology roadmap. Yeah, what were you working on in computers 25 years ago? Probably a Windows 95 box. There was no social media. There was no iPhone. Wow. So it's hard. It's hard to do this right. So that's one thing. We expect to have a publicly releasable report out soon in the spring on some of our findings. Also, we are working on ways of working better with the universities to help identify what our research priorities are, and then working hand in hand with helping shape ideas for research projects so that the graduates of our academics institutions have a clear transition path to take their research and apply it on day one, whether they work for the operational community, organizations like DISA, which are building our defense infrastructure, or the research and engineering enterprise, which is where I work, Dr. Craven, Dr. Wang, and others work too, right? And then the third thing I was just going to mention was that there's another section in the NDAA for FY20, which was called 1659, which is the University Consortium for Cybersecurity. And it defines a mechanism by which the Department of Defense, the Secretary of Defense specifically, has a line of communication in with a consortium of universities to discuss Department of Defense needs and resources, and pair that up best with university competencies, and to solicit universities' perspectives on what they can contribute to the overall DoD mission. So you'll probably see something about that coming up in the next 3 months or so. Last thing to get off the stage was I mentioned this idea about these cyber institutes a moment ago, about working with universities and their research programs. That's under Section 1640 of the FY19 NDAA. We expect to release a call for proposals from universities to form consortia in geographical and topical areas. And we're probably going to be releasing that in the next maybe 1 to 3 days. And the website that you'll be going to is, it'll be the Griffiths Institute. So the HTTPS : / all that kind of stuff, right? www.griffithsinstitute, that's one word, .org/Viceroy, VICEROY. And Griffiths, by the way, is GRIFFISS. So it's Griffiths Institute, one word. So I hope and encourage our academic organizations from across the country to take a look at the solicitation. It should be closing around the end of December. And looking to hopefully see a number of good proposals in various technical areas of interest of both the university environment and DoD. So that's all I have. That's my thumbnail sketch of what you'd see in the video.
Thank you, CJ. Brian, what is your 2 to 5 minute elevator pitch?
Hey, Jen, thanks. Yeah, so I mean, much like the previous speakers have talked about, we're in the same community. From my perspective, I'm in the Office of Naval Research, and we're based out of Arlington, Virginia, the other side of Arlington from where the background in CJ's picture there. We're the headquarters activity for science and technology research for the Department of the Navy. So what does that mean, right? That means that we direct or oversee pretty much all the basic and applied science technology efforts for the United States Navy and Marine Corps. And, we within ONR, we work with partners from around the naval community to define research strategy, and then to plan and direct research efforts to, execute that strategy. And so my group at ONR is focused on cybersecurity and complex software systems. That's the name of our group. And we work everything from, systems and network security to program analysis, cyber physical systems, and even up to the general computing topics. And Cliff did a fantastic job. So I would point everyone to his talk for seeing the lay of the land of all the different programs that the DoD makes available for engagement opportunities and funding opportunities for the universities and academic communities. We have a single investigator program as well at ONR. We also have young investigator programs that reward high-performing young faculty. We have MIRIs, which reward multidisciplinary teams of researchers getting together to tackle a really hard topic. And the goal of that program, right, of course, is looking for that little extra something that you get by having people from different disciplines work together that normally don't interact. So there's lots of programs like that. There's DIRUP, which helps, as Cliff mentioned, get improvements in hardware out to communities so that you can do tackle different research topics. I see some questions here in the chat. Not all the research problems are classified. A lot of the stuff we do, so this is getting into some congressional budget parlance, but there's a type of budget within the DoD called 6-1. And 6-1 basically means that it's basic research money. So Congress actually, defines, a budget outlay to the services, and it says you will spend this on basic research. So, going after the core problems. A lot of these core problems don't have classified components to them. They're fundamental science efforts, and what we get out of it is as long as it's focused in an area that is part of our mission, can help our mission, then it's an area that we support, and allows the DoD to benefit from advancing science out in the open community. And then the goal is oftentimes to bring that into higher level applied efforts and actually apply it to a real system of some sort. So in my talk, if you look at it, I hit on the wave tops of 3 different areas where there are some open problems. So I pitched 3 open problems in the talk. One of them was on cyber physical systems. So there's a really interesting stat that I saw the other day. The new F-150 has like 150 million lines of code in the F-150. There's over 100 different processors running that code. So really, when you get inside that truck and drive around, you're not getting in a truck, you're getting into a data center, and driving around a giant computer on the road. Just the amount of complexity that's in our systems, and computers have permeated so much of society that they're powering real, physical things in our lives. And so the security of these things is important. The community's been looking at it harder, I would say, in the last 10 to 15 years or so. You saw, like in the opens community back in the late 2000s, there was a good set of papers out of UC San Diego, University of Washington, that looked at security of vehicles, right? A lot of times, for the 20, 30 years before that, as computers had started permeating these systems, they were never intended to be hooked to the internet. They were built into closed network environments, buses, CAN buses, backplanes for PLCs. None of these things were ever intended to be exposed out to the internet. But, over the last 10, 15 years or so, we've wanted more data. We've wanted the ability to remotely turn on locks and get all kinds of extra features and have automation and AI into everything. And so what that's caused is, we want a fully connected world. And if you want a fully connected world, you're going to have to deal with the ramifications of that. And that's true, especially for the DoD platforms as well, right? I mean, we've been in the Navy, have been pushing for a fully connected fleet for years and decades. And having, any part of the fleet address any part of the problem, have them all work together collectively, that requires a lot of communication. And so when you do that, you have to deal with that risk. How do you manage it in a proactive way? So I talked about that in a couple of different topics. There was one about some discussion about bloat and reducing complexity in our software. A lot of the bugs that come out for software, you find that it's in a piece of the code that you never even used in the first place, right? We in the DoD are oftentimes not building a lot of our own software. We're using stuff from the open source community. We're using COTS applications, and we're integrating all of these things together. So we're really just big consumers and we're big integrators. But we're building these systems for a specific purpose, right? And we might be using 1% of the features out of a library or some piece of COTS software. So let's make sure that the code that actually executes on our end systems actually has a mission or a reason for being there. And it's really, current development practices are all about going faster and reusing a lot of code, and it exacerbates that problem. So it's really quite an issue. And another big area that I really want to emphasize is that last bit about heterogeneous systems. So this is really the way that performance is going to be gained over the next 20 to 30 years. If you look at the last 20 or 30 years, we've been spoiled by the hardware community, right? I say we being the software development community, have been able to just write code and write the crappiest, most bloated, unoptimized code possible. And we're so fortunate that every year or every 18 months, the performance of those applications has doubled because the hardware community had been making faster chips, reducing the feature size on transistors, increasing performance. But that's no longer true, right? And it hasn't been true for some time. They've been playing a few more tricks that they've had up their sleeve, like multi-core and stuff like that, to try to get us a little further along. But that's even drying up now. So really the only way forward left for performance gains in the future is going to these heterogeneous domain-specific architectures. And so, for us to take advantage of that as a community, as the DoD, it's really critical topic. How do you do that? And ONR views that the key to that is programmability. I think if you listen to the Turing lecture that I point to from Hennessy and Patterson, they talk a lot about programmability. So, how do you program such a beast where it has all these different coprocessors and specialized computing units that tackle different parts of the computing task? So I lay out an analogy that's like remodeling a bathroom, right? So you get this complex task like remodeling a bathroom. Imagine that that's your computing task you're trying to tackle. For the past 20, 30 years, we've been letting the handyman do it. And that's been going okay, but there's a more efficient way to get that job done, right? By hiring a plumber, hiring an electrician, hiring a painter, a tile guy. And it's on you then at that point to break your task up and give the right parts of the right tasks to the right people and put it in their language that they understand what you're asking them to do. And so think about all of the legacy code that we have out there. It's not meant for any of this. It's just a bunch of C code. So how do you actually, break that code out and actually bring it into this new way of doing things where we're more closely tied to the hardware, right? We're not just writing software independent of the hardware anymore. If you really want good performance gains from your system, when you write software in the future, you're going to have to think about how that's going to be executed on the hardware and how it's going to be pushed to the right unit to do the right part of your job. So there's some really high level research problems, all in class, fundamental research things. These are going to affect not just the DoD, but the community at large. And one of the last things I mentioned in the talk is really just implore researchers to think about how do you get your techniques and your ideas to work with existing code. All too often we see, research papers and things assume the fairy tale world, right? Where you can just rip out the hardware, rewrite the code. Or a model exists, I'll just ask, get the model of what the code was. And the real world's messy, right? And especially in the Navy and Marine Corps, we've got code written by contractors that don't exist anymore. You're not going to, oftentimes there's code that's been around for 30, 40 years. You're not going to find the person who wrote it or know what was going on in their head. And so how do we deal with all that existing stuff that we have and improve the security and efficiency and performance of it? Over.
Thank you, Ryan. We do have two questions in the chat real quick. is U.S. citizenship required for your projects?
So I'll speak from the ONR side. The answer is no. We work a lot with the international community as well. So you'll see on my second slide of my talk, there's actually a whole global arm to our command. And we value engagement with international partners. We oftentimes even fund grants with overseas universities. We're really interested in getting the best ideas to come forward. In a lot of our grants that we do with our basic research 6.1 grants that I talked about, there's oftentimes very light to little, if any, restrictions on how to get the task done. It's all about advancing science.
So same for AIO. Actually, I posted on the chat. So if you're working in the U.S. institutions and some people only have green card, and there's no problem. And similar as in ONR, we have international offices which seeking collaboration or seeking opportunities outside the U.S. But we do notice that research is going to be a heavily contented area, and we do need to protect national assets from that perspective into the wrong hands, but no restrictions, but just anybody can apply to our program. But we do intend to protect intellectual properties of the U.S.
Yeah, I'll add that if as you start to get into the applied world where you want to say, actually, I want to see my research come to life on a real system. Obviously, that gets into higher stuff. You need to have restrictions on who can access it and things like that.
All right. One more question. How do we contact you and try to recruit technical director to participating in the Ensure program? If anyone's interested in y'all's programs or they see a program, who should they contact, and how do they get in contact with the right people in your organizations?
So from our side, we have open BAA, which I'll put on my slides, and you can easily Google our BAA. And the interests of current programs are identified in the BAA. So if you see a matching interest, that's where you can contact us. And all the POCs of each program is in that BAA. So the BAA is the first place to start.
For ONR, I'll point people to the website as well. I think we also have it listed in our BAA, but the website might be more easily consumable. It should be on there.
Yeah, for OS
programs.
I'm sorry, Ryan. So for OSD, our website where you go to, I think, www.cto.dod.mil, perhaps, but basically it's the USDRNE website. And if you go under Basic Research Office, BRO, there's a number of opportunities there for basic research and some solicitations as well that are announced. With regard to the question on Ensure, to be honest, I wasn't that familiar with it, having only been here at OSD about a couple of years, but it looks to me that this is primarily at least in the example that I see here, primarily a relationship between universities and the intelligence community, or DOE. So to find, if that is indeed the case, based on what I'm seeing here, it seems to me that those would be the right communities to go to find the right sponsorship and leadership for the priorities for which the program was intended, if that's helpful. It may not be, but that's the best answer I can kind of give here live.
Last chance for questions, anybody? All right. CJ, Ryan, oh, go ahead, Agnes.
Can I ask a question to all the panelists? I'm holding the, in charge of Ensure, and we constantly looking for technical directors to come up with problems that to supervise students to work on. These have to be unclassified because they have to be open to the public. So my questions to you all is that, are there researchers in your organizations that are working on projects or problems that maybe enthusiastic students can help? If there are such problems and such people, how do we contact them and recruit them to actually participate in the Ensure program? The Ensure program is any cybersecurity problems. It's not really just restricted to intelligence.
Okay, well, thank you for that clarification. I would just refer you to the chat window here where Susan Wetzel mentioned that you should probably contact the Ensure at caecommunity.org to find a network of people who would be available to do that. That would be my best recommendation here on the fly. Over.
All right, well, CJ, Ryan, Cliff, we want to give you a huge thank you for taking your time out to record your videos and present your videos and then be here for the Q&A. Everyone, don't forget, go out and watch the pre-recorded videos and have a good rest of your day.